Hello there, I'm Sarah, your natural endometriosis expert. Welcome to my podcast. This is the place to be for information, advice and tips on managing your endometriosis naturally. I've been managing my own endo now successfully for about 20 years, and I've been running my own therapy business since 2008, helping others to do the same. If you're curious to cut through all the noise and rubbish that's out there and learn the key to managing endometriosis with minimal reliance on drugs and surgery, then this is the only podcast you'll need. Let's get started. Hello there, and welcome to this week's podcast. Well, I say this week's podcast. This is a prime example of be careful what you wish for. The universe is always listening, so careful what you put out there. A couple of episodes ago, you will remember that I was talking about the reasons that I stepped back from this podcast this year, how I felt as if I'd explored all the avenues of endometriosis, how I'd put all of my knowledge out there, and I just wanted the podcast just to sit there to be discovered by whoever needed to find it. Well, since then, I've been inundated with requests for clarification on certain things I've said in previous episodes, questions to be answered in future episodes, and also ideas for topics for future podcasts. So thank you so much for getting in touch if you have. The fabulous result is that I feel as if I've got too much content now for one podcast a week. So you lucky people are going to hear from me twice a week between now and Christmas. It's just a trial. It might not be sustainable. It might be way too overwhelming for me and for you guys as well. So it is just a trial. But between now and Christmas, you can expect to receive 2 podcasts. Let me know if it's not working for you. Always happy for feedback. So this podcast is all about resilience. So today I am going to talk about what resilience is, what it means to us when we're struggling with our symptoms, when we're struggling with endometriosis, how to build resilience, how to notice if you are not particularly resilient, and things not to do to either deplete your resilience or when you're feeling not very resilient. So, first thing, what is resilience? So resilience can be different for different people, can look different, can manifest different, and it's certainly different between men and women. That's the first difference to make. But also between women who struggle with symptoms of endometriosis or menopause or fibroids or whatever it is that you're struggling with. If you're struggling with symptoms, then your resilience can look very, very different to other women as well. We can be massively impacted, or our resilience can be massively impacted by the symptoms that we're experiencing, and I'll go into that in a second. But essentially, resilience is the ability to bounce back when things are tough. It's about being able to meet a challenge head on, or at least head on after a little bit of rest, and it's about a healthy optimism. And I say healthy optimism because resilience isn't about being happy all the time. It's not about this toxic happiness that you see in some people that are just singing and skipping and dancing no matter what life is throwing at them. That's not realistic. It's not real. It's not a healthy way to be, exactly the same way as if sitting with depression, sitting anxiety, and sitting with that negativity all the time is not healthy. Resilience is about being able to bounce back, being able to cope with the downs of life as well as the ups of life, but being able to know that things are going to get better and being able to take steps yourself to make them better. And that's quite an important differentiation as well. So I was asked a question a couple of weeks ago, which was a cracking question. Have I managed my endometriosis symptoms for 20 years or have I just ignored them? Which I thought was a brilliant question. And there might actually be a podcast in that itself. I think this podcast might go some way to answer that. But if not, I might actually look at doing a podcast on that, which might be quite an interesting explorational journey for us all. But this is what resilience is as well. It's about not avoiding things. So sure, there are times where we avoid situations. There are times where I have avoided my symptoms. Maybe I do need a podcast on that actually. But resilience is about not avoiding difficulty. It's about handling difficulty with confidence, with a self-belief, with, I'm going to say a polite optimism, a realistic optimism. And it's about believing that things are going to get better. So you can have that belief, and you'll have heard me say so many times, everything happens for a reason. And I do believe that, but it isn't just a blind optimism. It's coupled with an understanding that, yes, things do happen for a reason, but actually there is learning from every situation. And the reason that something may have happened, no matter how big or small, could be that I learn steps to prevent something like this happening again, or that I am able to take my learning and prevent it happening to somebody else. It's not that it's just blindly riding the tide of it, ignoring the possibility that it's going to happen again and thinking, oh yeah, I'm just going to get on with life. That's not being resilient. Resilience is about acknowledging exactly what's happening, knowing where your strengths and weaknesses are to cope with it, and handling it until you come out the other side. And yes, you may be scarred, you may have healing to do at the other side of it, but you know, and you have the skills, or you have the ability to find people who can help build you back up if you can't do it yourself. That is what resilience is, especially when you're struggling with endo. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how to recognize when your resilience is low, because this is a really, really important factor that we don't really talk about a lot when we talk about resilience. We could talk about resilience as if it's a static thing, as if this is my resilience. But your resilience changes exactly the same as our energy levels change, our fatigue, all of the other stuff that we have going on. Our resilience changes. And sometimes we're not completely in tune with our resilience levels. We can put it down to other stuff. We can just ignore it completely. But it's really, really important. You'll hear me talking about tracking your cycle all of the time. If you do track your cycle, yay, first off, well done. If you do track your cycle, do you track your resilience level? So you'll hear me talk of in previous podcasts, or if you've worked with me in any capacity, you'll hear me talk sometimes about scoring things out of 10. So it's dead easy to see when things are changing, when things are fluctuating. And this is a really good one to track. So resilience out of 5 is probably a good one. So if you're feeling 5 out of 5 resilient, it's literally that your house could crumble around you. You could be sitting in the dust of your house. And yes, okay, you're feeling scared, you're feeling upset, you're feeling angry, all the rest of the negative emotions, but you have the resilience to be able to pick yourself up, dust yourself off and think, okay, this has happened. I'm going to have to do this, 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 and this in order to, I don't know, build myself a new house or whatever it is, whatever the next steps, whatever the outcome that you want after that disaster is happening. So resilience is not the fact that you've ignored the fact that your house has fallen down. It's not the fact that you've ignored the fact that you're sat in all this rubble and dust and all your clothes are everywhere or whatever. It's not the fact that you're ignoring it. It's the fact that you're acknowledging it's happened. You're acknowledging the shittiness of it, but you are at some point going to be able to stand up, literally dust yourself off, and start taking steps to put that situation right, or to put yourself right within that situation. So that's 5 out of 5. 0 out of 5 will be when just the smallest thing tips you over the edge. So, I don't know, somebody getting your sandwich order wrong in Subway. Something really small that just triggers the most almighty reaction in you. And that reaction could be anger, it could be uncontrollable sobbing, whatever that reaction is. It's the fact that that reaction is incommensurate with the activity that's happened. So you've kind of overreacted. I don't mean that in a judgmental way. I mean literally the reaction that you're experiencing isn't level with the episode. So if you just have 0 resilience, if the fact that you've broken a nail means that you take to your bed for 3 days, that's when your resilience is 0 out of 5. So score every day, sort of on average, how resilient you've been feeling that day. And then that will enable you to see any correlation between the time of your cycle, other stuff that's going on, so your stress levels and your resilience. Once you understand your own resilience levels, your own resilience patterns, it gets a lot easier to manage, and it gets a lot easier to control as well. There's a difference between managing it and controlling it. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't know. There is in my mind. But if you want to control your resilience, we can go through in this podcast ways to build that resilience up. But as soon as you start to notice when your resilience, or predict when your resilience will be dipping, you can do more of the things to build it up. So how to notice when your resilience is slipping. So emotional signs are possibly the first, or I think with me they're definitely the first. So exactly as we've just said, so having a short temper, or getting frustrated over really small things. Things that if you were sort of a 4 out of 5 or even a 3 out of 5 wouldn't bother you. When your resilience is 0, you just flare up. So it's not just the temper or the frustration, though. It's also sort of almost like a numbness as well. So if you don't react to something that's happened that would normally have invoked a reaction in you, but you just don't care anymore. So it can be one extreme or the other. It can be an extreme emotional reaction such as anger or frustration or crying, or it could just be a, oh, do you know what, forget it, over something quite big. Similarly, if you're feeling persistent sadness, so if you're feeling a lot of sadness, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling hopelessness, and that feeling isn't shifting, you don't know how to move from there, you're stuck in these feelings, in this low mood for an extended period of time, that's a real sign that your resilience is really, really low. Excuse me, or even the overthinking as well. So if you find it difficult to relax, if you can't switch your brain off, if you're constantly feeling stressed, again, that's a surefire signal that your resilience is really, really low. Your behaviour can start to change as well. So you can start to see yourself withdrawing from social interactions. So avoiding things that bring you joy. Conversely, perversely, whatever the word is, quite often when our resilience is low, we tend to shy away from things that we know are going to bring us joy. We can procrastinate a lot as well. We can have a lack of motivation, again, to do good things, to complete tasks, to even start tasks. We can just feel too overwhelmed at times. We can ignore self-care routines. We can even ignore hygiene. I know when my resilience has been at an all-time low a few times over the past years, and I will not wash my hair every day. I don't necessarily wash my hair every day, but you know what I mean. I can kind of push it until I'm looking really grubby, and I'll just sort of say, oh yeah, I'll just pop a hat on today because I've not washed my hair for 3 days. And I'm making light of it, but actually it's again, a surefire way if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not eating healthily, if you're not doing your self-care regime or routines, see the last episode, that's again a signal that your resilience is low. It's a signal of other stuff as well, but it's a signal that your resilience is low, because if you are feeling confident, if you're feeling able to manage things, then you're always better placed to take care of yourself, to look after yourself. Avoidance behaviour. So you maybe turn to your more unhealthy coping mechanisms. So scrolling through Facebook, drinking booze, eating chocolate, all of those things that we do to avoid facing whatever it is that we're facing, or the things we do to almost like keep us in that fog, in that stuck situation. Another thing that's really telling as well is the tendency for us to overwork. So specifically talking about a work scenario, pushing through pain, pushing through the symptoms we're experiencing, not taking breaks, neglecting our rest times, and trying to push ourselves too hard just in an effort to cope with the symptoms or whatever it is that we've got going on. We think that that's a sign of us being strong, that's a sign of strength, but actually it's one of the tick boxes to say that your resilience is really low, because you're worried about the impact of saying to somebody, look, do you know what, I need to take today off, I need to go home and just take some time for me. You don't have the strength with a small s, it's not a judgment statement, but you don't have that resilience to be able to say, no, this is me, this is what I need to do today, this is what I need to do to get myself feeling better. So if your resilience is low, you can feel tired, you can get recurring illnesses, struggle to sleep. Bizarrely, your resilience levels are directly linked to pain as well. So you can see how you can get into this cycle of pain causing a dip in your resilience and a dip in your resilience causing pain. Again, it's one of these cycles. And if you can understand that, if you see that in your tracking, then you can start to break this cycle. Muscle tension, digestive issues, all of the stuff that we get with endo anyway, it is exacerbated with low resilience, and low resilience, or resilience should I say, is exacerbated by your symptoms. So again, we get stuck in this cycle. Self-talk, negative self-talk. I can't do this. I'm never going to feel better. Nothing is ever going to get better than today. This is really, really important as well when it comes to endo. I mean, what are we told when we're finally given the diagnosis of endometriosis, sometimes after years of struggling to even be heard? You're given the diagnosis of endometriosis, you think, fabulous, finally getting somewhere. The next thing you're told is, well, there's nothing we can do. We can try this, we can try that, but actually, you're never going to get better. That negative talk really, really is damaging for our resilience. I'll talk about ways of combating this. This is feeling very negative now. I'm getting into this spiral myself, but we're going to talk about ways to combat all of these. So difficult concentrating, catastrophizing with everything. So kind of thinking that the worst is going to happen all of the time. And not being able to think clearly when you're faced with a challenge. So if you kind of get completely overwhelmed, this is coming back to kind of almost like that numbness. So if something major starts to happen, rather than being able to think clearly, your brain just gets overwhelmed and you just switch off. You can feel isolated, misunderstood, bizarrely as well, or maybe not bizarrely actually. I see myself completely in this one. Difficulty accepting help. For so many of us, we think we're being resilient by trying to do things by ourselves. Anything from washing up or hoovering right the way through to, I don't know, major changes. We have difficulty accepting and certainly asking for help, but actually that's a sign that your resilience is really, really low. So all of these things are symptomatic of low resilience. So you might see things fluctuating from, like I say, from time to time of the month, time to time of your cycle. If you acknowledge, or when you acknowledge that your resilience is low, the key thing to do is just to acknowledge that this is happening, just to acknowledge that actually your resilience is low. Talk to yourself, journal, talk to someone who you trust, talk to a loved one about the fact that you're feeling like this. And conversely, even though I've said about we struggle to ask for help, see if you can get some support. And gently remind yourself that you can feel better. Building resilience is possible. It just requires all of the steps I'm going to talk about now. It just requires rest, it requires care, it requires self-compassion, it requires time. But it's really, really important because the more resilient you are, the less you'll see your symptoms impacting in every single area of your life. So, how to build resilience? So, like I say, it takes time, it takes a bit of self-care, it takes a bit of self-belief, but we can build all of those things. It's all about creating healthy rituals, healthy habits. So building in productive self-care practices. So prioritize rest. If you feel tired, have a snooze. Not necessarily at work. Although, to be fair, I did a workplace workshop a few weeks ago now. And one of the managers came down and said that one of their staff members had gone into the meeting room and was having a snooze. And I don't think my dad listens to these podcasts. I don't think I'm going to get into trouble. But I have it on good authority that my dad used to take regular snoozes at his desk. Used to shut his office door and have a quick power nap. So they are prioritising rest at work. I can't fault that because it's what it's what I preach. I'm lucky I work for myself. I can build in a snooze time into my day if I want. But if you can't, then just make sure that whenever you can, you are prioritising your own rest. Nourish your body, mind and soul. Not just with food, although that's really important. So eat seasonally, eat as healthily as you can. And there's a podcast coming up on how to do that as we're shifting into the autumn season. But also nurture and nourish your brain and your soul. So in terms of the things you listen to, the people you talk to, the information that you gather, algorithms are fabulous in one respect, but the more down a rabbit hole you go on things like Facebook, on things that use algorithms, the more entrenched in that algorithm you get. So if you want to shift your thinking on particular situations, it's actually quite difficult. So just be very mindful of what you're feeding your mind. Try and feed your mind positivity. Try and feed your mind curiousness and openness. Nurture your soul. Listen to music, watch films, read books. And do exercise. you know I don't like the word exercise, but do exercise, get more movement into your day. So that could be a simple walk around a block. It could be a bit of qigong early in the morning. It could just be some stretches and some abdominal breath work. If all of that is too much, then even just a self-massage, an abdominal massage or a leg massage, anything that actually just gets the blood flowing a little bit more is really, really beneficial. Don't chastise, is that the word? Chastise, castigate. There we are, 2 words. Don't castigate or chastise yourself for how you're feeling. Recognize that you have these emotions and these emotions are valid. Journal about them. Talk to your friends. Talk to people or journal to help you express what you're feeling. It isn't always that easy, and quite often you don't know, and until you start sort of exploring your feelings, you don't go deeper. But understanding why you're feeling how you're feeling can really help as well. And it could just be, so for example, sometimes when my resilience is low, I can see, I used this example this week somewhere, but a squashed hedgehog at the side of the road, and I'll suddenly start thinking about the family that it's left, and I'll start getting tearful. Other times of the month I can just think, oh look, there's a squashed hedgehog, and not give it that much thought. So sometimes there's not really a why as to what you're feeling, other than my resilience is low or my hormones are all over the place. But that's fine. That is your why. So focus on what you can control as well. So when you are getting challenges coming through, what can you control and what can't you control? A few years ago now, I started to take a lot more of the Zen approach. And I used to think that I had to control a lot of what was happening around me. And I don't mean people or situations like that. I just mean that I had to react quickly. And this comes back again to us trying to prove ourselves at work. But I spent a lot of my time trying to control situations rather than just taking the Zen approach and just letting things flow. What's the worst that can happen? Is anybody going to die? Is there going to be a world catastrophe if I don't do A, B, C, and D before I shut my computer? Yeah, okay, I might think about it tonight. It might stop me sleeping. So what can I do to mitigate that? Well, I'll just make a list of things that I haven't done today that I need to do tomorrow, and I'll shut my laptop. That's fine. Control what you can control. Don't take the world on. Don't take everything on your shoulders. Healthy boundaries. So say no. Practice saying no. There is a book called Boundaries, which is absolutely fabulous. Anything that will instill the importance of boundaries. My life changed dramatically when I realised that I had the power to set my own boundaries, to say no, and to actively take control, to reduce my stress and my triggers, and not to take on the world. It's incredibly difficult to do, especially if you are used to having low resilience. So you're used to going with the flow, but not necessarily being happy in the flow. You're used to people pleasing. It can be really, really difficult to start these boundaries. But once you get the hang of it, it really does feel good. Check out your support networks. Lean on your friends and your family. Support groups are great. I don't necessarily advocate Facebook's support groups or social media support groups because you get a lot of catastrophizing in there. So choose wisely, but lean on them for support and encouragement, positivity and understanding when you need to. Practice mindfulness and meditation. Breath work, again, really, really good. A really simple thing to do if you are struggling and you just want to do a little bit of breath work is just so always breathe from your tummy. Try and avoid shallow breathing because that puts your body into fight or flight, but just breathe in through one nostril. So obviously you can't see me, can you, as I'm doing this? Nice one, Sarah. Put one nose over one nostril and breathe in. Release the nostril, put your finger over the other nostril and breathe out. So you're breathing in and out through different nostrils. Just focusing on that, even just for a minute, clears your mind, brings you back to the present. Use guided visualizations. Come to my distance healing Reiki sessions once a month. We do guided visualizations, Reiki treatments in there every month. Things like that are fabulous to build your resilience. It gives you peace. It gives you quiet. That's what you want to build a resilience. Resilience is almost like the overwhelm of noise. So the more noise you have, the more activity, the more stimulus you have, the less resilient you are, the less resilient you feel. So the more calm you can bring into your life, the more stillness, the more control, the more space you have, the greater your resilience. So anything you can do to instill this calm, to bring this calm and sense of control into your life, the bigger your resilience will be, the more towards the 5 out of 5 you will feel. So yes, come along to my monthly Reiki sessions. They're on at the time of recording, they're on the last Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock, and you can get the links for them on my website. There will be some changes actually coming. I didn't mean to talk about this, but there will be some changes coming in the new year in terms of how we distribute these podcasts and do all the things like the health clinic and all of those kind of things. They're all going to be one place. So it's going to be a lot easier for you to find them. And also there's going to be subscription options as well, where you can just subscribe for a low monthly fee and just get access to all of it. So keep an eye out for that. But until then, you can just pay to join us. It's £5 at the time of recording for the Reiki meditation session. Like I say, that's on the last Wednesday. So recorded meditations on YouTube. There's tons of apps now that you can get for mindfulness and meditation. The key thing for that is to find somebody who you resonate with, who you can listen to. The amount of times I've sort of found a YouTube channel, I thought, oh, this looks really good. Yeah, I like the pictures. Yeah, I'll get into that. So I've got myself all comfortable, shut my eyes, got my incense burning, press play, and there's just been this horrendous, normally American, broad accent. And I'm just like, no, this is not relaxing. So the key thing is relaxation. You want calm, you want peace. You don't want to be doing things, no matter how good somebody says it is for you. If it's not working for you, bin it. You want stuff that's going to work for you, that's going to help you feel relaxed and happy. And when things happen, start to formulate action plans in your mind. So break down these challenges, break down things that happen, because things will happen every day that challenge you. If you are struggling with your resilience, so if you start to feel yourself slipping into that overthinking, slipping into that I'm not going to be able to do this mentality, slipping into the overthinking of this is never going to get better, slipping into the I may as well just avoid it. If you find yourself slipping into that, then break down the challenge into steps that you find not overwhelming. Now, one of those steps may well be, okay, what do I need to do to be able to forget about this for today and come back to it tomorrow? If you're tracking your resilience levels, if your resilience it's a 1 today, but you know by the end of the week it's going to be back up to a 4, then what steps can you do to park this until 4? Take the Zen approach. That's not avoiding it, that's not ignoring it. Just control what you need to control, what you can control, and come back to it at a time where you're better placed to deal with it when you can do. And be realistic. Avoid unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations are, I know this is simplifying it, but the toxic happiness and the toxic negativity. So unrealistic expectations, it's going to be fine. Honestly, it'll be fine. Everything happens for a reason. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. That's unrealistic. Unless you've actually sat down and thought about it, broken it down, worked out your actions, done tangible things towards figuring out actually what's going on. Just to sit there in the rubble of your house saying very, very defiantly it's going to be fine, that's not being resilient. Equally, I'm never going to recover from this. This is it. I am never going to feel better than I do today. This is all just dreadful. That's unrealistic too. Of course, you can make it fine. You can skip happily through the rubble, never look back and do whatever you want to do, or you can sit there and never feel good and never feel happy again. The difference is you have the choice. It is a choice that you can make, and the greater your resilience, the greater your options are in terms of how you cope and how you deal with it. So, final thought. Well, actually, just to say as well, just to reiterate, you will have heard me talk about the link between our emotions and our physical health. When we are struggling with things like endometriosis, the chronic anxiety and chronic stress, as well as the physical symptoms that we can feel, can really lead us to think that things can't get better. They can lead us to suppress emotions because we don't feel as if our emotions are valid, or we feel as if we're constantly too negative, or we're too demanding, or we put on people too much, and that can really cause us to suppress our emotional state. And as you know, this I believe, well, in my world, any emotions that are suppressed exacerbate physical symptoms. So they create stagnation, they create pain, they create inflammation and emotional pain. So the important thing is, when we talk about resilience, if you feel as if you can't talk to somebody, if you feel as if you are suppressing your emotions, then write about them, get them out. Talk to a helpline if you need to talk to a helpline. You don't have to always talk to somebody you know. Talk a voice note. And this is something that I actually came to a realization relatively recently about this. And it's not just about writing things out. In fact, I was working with a lovely client that I've just started to work with. And she reminded me of this as a really powerful tool, because she struggles with RSI. So she struggles sometimes to write. And that was a really powerful reminder that actually I'd completely forgotten about this, because one thing that I used to do when, it sounds daft, but when I turned my light off, if I hadn't done my journaling, I couldn't be bothered to turn my light back on, especially the winter. So I just used to leave little voice notes. Now I hate the sound of my own voice. I never listen to these podcasts. I never listened to the voice notes, but just the act of getting the voice note out was exactly the same as writing it. So if you need to get your emotions off your chest, talk to yourself via a voice note, journal it, ring a helpline, speak to friends and family if you can. Just get it out there, because if we're not resolving emotions, then they sit and fester, for want of a better word. Over time, it's not a quick thing, but they do sit and fester. So the less resilient you're feeling, then the less inclined you are to share your feelings. But the more you share your feelings, the more you'll feel your resilience grow. So even if you don't feel as if you can share them with people, just get them out. Resilience is a combination of a lot of things. So it's a combination of emotional strength, and I use that word again in a non-judgmental way. We feel as if we have to be strong all the time. We feel as if strength is a good thing. In this context it is, but you can be too strong. You can be too self-reliant. The strength to overcome, the strength to be able to acknowledge that something's happening, to deal with it, to control what you can control, and to learn from it and come out the other side a better person. That's what we're trying to do. When I say better person, again, not in a judgmental way, just in a bigger skill set kind of a way. It's also a combination of self-care as well. So if you go back to what I was saying in terms of noticing when your resilience is dipping, noticing that you're not maybe taking the best care of yourself, again, don't chastise yourself because of that. Acknowledge it and maybe do one thing. Maybe wash your hair. I'm talking about myself here. I didn't wash my hair this morning. Maybe wash your hair. Maybe just paint your nails. Maybe just do one act of self-care. That one act of self-care, even if you don't necessarily notice it at the time, will lift your spirits. If you add to that another self-care task, or part of a routine or a ritual, then that will slowly start to build your resilience. It's all about getting back to a level. It's not about an instant hit if you're feeling naught out of 10. So I hope that's helped. Resilience is definitely a ritual, for want of a better phrase. It isn't fixed. Parts of your cycle, parts of your emotional, hormonal cycle, parts of your life, you will feel way more resilient than other parts. It's just about noticing when your resilience is dipping and being able to build that resilience. It's an ongoing thing, especially when you're living with something like endometriosis. My resilience and I have a love-hate relationship. Sometimes I'm not as connected as I need to be, and I know that when my resilience is low, then that's when I have these slumps. That's when I find it harder to manage. In fact, let's go back to that question. When my resilience is low, that's when I tend to avoid my symptoms rather than manage them. So I will push on regardless, rather than taking control and managing my symptoms when my resilience is low. So I hope that's helped. I hope that you can recognise some stuff in there that relates to you, and I hope that I've given you some sort of control back over your resilience. And let me know whether it's helped. Let me know what resilience means to you, and also have that picture in your mind. Let yourself know what a resilient 5 out of 5 you looks and feels like, and how you know that you can get yourself back there when it's dipping. Okay, until next time, take care. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really hope that you found this podcast helpful. If you did, please hit follow so you can listen to more, and please also share it with anyone else who you think will benefit. And don't forget, if you're looking for women's health treatments, workshops or support within your workplace, you can find all of my services, including our monthly virtual clinic, over at www.halcyonwomenshealth.com. I'll see you next time.